and I want to welcome you today to the Unanet Foundation series that we're going to start today. The first topic is uncovering the mystery of unmuted in Unanet and really understanding about those organizations. So we're going to learn how to maintain organizational information regarding internal organizations, those that are departments, regions, offices, and external organizations. They're typically customers or vendors. In this webinar, we'll cover organizational types, profiles, contacts, dashboard, an overview of the organization access, the organization activity report, and a few more things as well, and some tips. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a few housekeeping tips as well. If you experience any internet delays or a lag in the response time, just, if your screen stops at any, just try dropping off of the webinar and re-entering the conference again. It should take care of that. And also joining me today is Raul. He's another customer account manager with our team, and he's going to be monitoring that questions box at the right-hand lower bottom there. So do type in your questions throughout the session today, and I will be checking questions after I do the hands-on demo site. So Raul, are you there? Just checking our audio.
I'm here, Sherry. Hello, everyone.
Great, thank you. In addition, underneath the questions box is the handout section, and we have uploaded the PowerPoint today that we'll be covering in that handout. So you can click on that and download that PowerPoint and have that to browse through as well. All right. So today, again, I wanted to cover types of organizations, organization attributes, an example hierarchy, and we'll go into my demo system and discuss a few more items as well and show you around as examples. So when I think of an organization or a company and associated divisions or groups or categories in Unanet, I like to think of the customer company as a filing cabinet. Each drawer would represent a type of organization or grouping in Unanet. So inside each drawer or organization contains files which would represent additional categories or groupings or subgroupings. The filing cabinet itself would represent the legal entity or the company in Unanet. So Unanet's flexible enough to have multiple legal entities in Unanet if you require that type of scenario. A legal entity is an entity for which we're maintaining a set of accounting records. So all organizations that are designated to be a financial organization must be identified as either a legal entity or a subdivision of that legal entity. And it's what you would like to track costs or income for financial statement purposes. It really has to do with the financial accounting license type that we have available today. Organizations, or the drawers, are used to maintain information about internal entities such as departments, regions, offices, and we also have external entities such as customers or vendors. They're a required entity in the Unanet system, and it must be established prior to defining projects or person profiles or customers or vendors. So think about, why have a file cabinet without any drawers of information? So organizations can be used for a variety of purposes and may serve several purposes at once. So let's take a look. So the first drawer is the financial organization drawer, and it has folders that represent categories. And these categories would be subfolders, hanging folders that represent internal departments and divisions. So there might be folders for owning organizations and for people organizations. The owner organizations are required for invoicing in Unanet, and they represent the remit to organization, which recognizes the revenue. Person organizations represent the company or a division within your company, cost, or even a subcontracting firm to which a user is employed. Person organizations are helpful in reporting, planning, and or assigning or requesting resources on groups of people within your Unanet. So you could also create reports associated with specific person organizations or groups of those organizations at one time. In addition, if you're using financials, Unanet financials, the financial organization or drawer would represent the entity that you'd be able to report on for your financial statements. So when an organization is designated as a financial organization, that organization is available for use in transaction entries and display in internal financial project reports. Again, this is available if you are using the financial licensing type. So the next drawer we have is the customer drawer. It's a project organizations. As a best practice, Unanet recommends that the project organization represent a customer. Now, for invoicing purposes, this type of organization would represent the bill-to organization, typically the customer that you're sending the invoice to and expecting to receive payments from. And as represented here, you could have a folder as an organization that holds commercial customers and another folder or hanging folder that would represent government contractors, government customers. And then with each pocket folder, a folder or an org would exist for each customer. Again, this is particularly useful in the reporting aspect in Unanet and enabling metrics for specific customers, groups of customer categories. Also equally important is the ability to view or restrict viewing of metrics based on these groups of organizations. The last drawer that we have is the type of organization called a vendor organization. This drawer is any entity you intend to issue payment to. This could be an individual or a company. An individual vendor organization will need to be created and associated for all the users in your system for which you intend to create accounts payable documents. For example, employee reimbursements or subcontractor payments, or any other entity you intend to issue payment. If you're using, again, the Unanet financials, you'll need to create a vendor drawer with vendor files in it. There isn't a particular attribute on the organization entity that designates it as a vendor organization, but rather associating an organization via the profile screens where you'll define the list of legal entities to which the current organization will be considered a vendor. A best practice is to name these types of files or organizations with a prefix of E underscore for employees and V underscore for company names. So when an organization is created, the organization object itself has several attributes associated with it that need to be defined. Here's the list of the type, which is something that can be configured per your Unanet instance and defining what those types are. The name, the hierarchy, which would be the parent if there is a hierarchy of folders and subfolders, any contacts, and also the addresses. And you'll need those contacts and addresses, especially if you're using billing in Unanet as well as Unanet Financials system. So let's take a look at, and also here I wanted to note here, in addition, the administrator can use the export-import templates and function to create and import these attributes in Unanet easily all at one time. So you can import organizations, the organizational access, addresses, and contacts. So it makes it very easy to set that up in a CSV or Excel spreadsheet and then import those in. So I wanted to show you an example of how we've set up a company, my company here. You can look and see under the Reports tab under the Reference. Now this is a new section as of Unanet 10, 2 releases ago. If you click into the Reports tab under Reference, you'll be able to see several different administrator type of reports, and the one is this organizational hierarchy tree view. So here I've got 4 different hierarchy areas here: the customer, my company, other for TBD users, and my vendors. And if I expand the first one, you can see that I have all of my customer organizations, or my drawer, my customer drawer there, and has all of the different organizations, the sub-organizations that represent my customers. Now the next one is the My Company, and if I expand out, those are where my person organizations are, and I have quite a hierarchy of my organizations to associate my people. So I've got a payment group and a development group and maybe a subcontractor group. So I've got my people associated with those person organizations, but the overall owning organization is the company, the My Company organization. And then finally, when I talked about those vendors, I had my external vendors set up for the employees, and I have the naming convention using the E underscore and that employee name. And this is the case where I'm going to, issue reimbursement or some kind of a subcontractor payment, for instance. And then down at the bottom here, these vendors, they're actually company vendors that I'm going to be able to do my accounts payable for. And again, that's relevant for my financials package if you're using the financials license type in the accounting system in Unanet. All right, so I think I've covered all of the PowerPoint that I wanted to cover. So let's go into my Unanet instance and take a look around in my demo system for a couple of these things here. So the first thing that I wanted to go is take you to that Reports tab and that organizational hierarchy view. So under the Reports tab, new in Unanet 10 and 10.1, there's a Reference tab here. And there are several different reports here for reference that have been moved from the Reports tab to this reference area. And what I showed in the PowerPoint was this organizational tree view here. And I want to take a look at that and run that for you. If I expand, I can expand particular areas, or I can expand all of it completely, and you can see how I've got the groupings. So it's kind of nice to be able to look at a different example of how someone else has set up their organizations in your system, and you can kind of think about the way you've got it set up. How flat is your organization? Do you need to have access or allow access for reporting purposes to each grouping customer or combination of customers, or do you need to have sub areas here for each customer? And again, how are your people organized? How are they? They're different divisions or groups. You can see I've got my engineers and support and tech people here, my finance people. I've got my professional services here divided into two different divisions, east and west, and then my subcontractors. And then finally, my vendors that I talked about, my vendors that I might be issuing payments if you're using the financials accounting package. So I thought I'd show this to you so you can get an example of what that could look like. And again, it's included on that PowerPoint so you can kind of compare and kind of think about how your organizations are set up. Now the other one that I wanted to show here is actually under the organizational dashboard. Let's look at the list of those organizations here. So if I just list them out by default here, you can see I've got all of them here alphabetically, not in a hierarchical look as the reference tab. And then you can see which ones are active and then which ones have been designated as financial organizations. You can see here my person organizations under my co are my financial organizations that I have in my system today, and the ability to allow transactions for those, for these people organizations, entities. Now the criteria has a number of different options to be able to include vendors, organizations, or not, customers, legal entities, the financial organizations. I can show if it's a customer, marked as a customer, or show as it's a vendor. So we'll just rerun this report again. It'll add another column to show, oh, these are my customers, these are my vendors, all the ones that are underscore, E underscore, and the ones at the bottom that are V underscore. So I can show some additional information on this listing by selecting a few different reporting options. And I can also narrow it down just looking at parent organizations or just sub organizations by filters. If I wanted to just look at everything that was the employee organizations, I could certainly do that. Let's see if I get this correctly. All right, so this dashboard, I just wanted to remind you that is available to the organization dashboard. It's available to the administrators, the billing manager, any alternates for those billing manager, and several of the financial viewers as well, AP, admin, posters, users, and the AR admin, poster, user as well. And I think the general ledger administrator as well. So it's the administrator in our portfolio licenses, tracking licenses, and then a few other GL, AP, and AR roles that are with the financials license type. All right, so let's go take a look at one of those organizations. I'm going to select the customer one example here. So let's take a look at the definitions inside here. So the organization types here are configured and defined in your Unanet setup under the admin setup. So you have the ability to create what those definitions are. And in my demo system here, we've got a customer, an employee AP, which would be my employee vendors, my internal organizations, all of those person organizations. I have one that's a subcontractor, and then my company vendors. So I've designated these. And these are defined. So what you have as organization type might be very different from what we have in our demonstration system here. To establish the hierarchy, this is where you would establish the hierarchy of the organization, who is the parent. And then we have some other market data here that you could fill in that's associated with that organization. The Financials tab, it can be used to identify attributes if you're using the Financial Accounting License package in Unanet. The financial organization would be an organization you intend to report on in your financial statements, such as tracking costs or income. And here's where you would denote the accounting transactions are enabled and for what date range to be able to have those transactions. So all of those person organizations might be an example of that. And of course, the other tab is the ability, that's where you specify any user-defined fields that the administrator might have added, and there's up to 10 of those that you could add to this particular object inside of Unanet. Now looking to these left-hand tab of attributes here, the customer profile is mainly used to select the payment terms that would be defined from your customers, so that all the contracts, projects, all invoicing in Unanet would see these default payment terms and would add to all of those invoices for that customer as a default. That's something that's new in 10.0. This ability to have this payment term information here. You can certainly overwrite that information at the project level, and of course overwrite that at the actual invoice level, but it is coming here from that customer organization. So the vendor profile is a profile that would be set up for the purposes of creating accounts payable documents. And then there's the contacts and addresses, organizational addresses. This can be added, again, as I stated before, and imported as a mass amount with the admin export import, as I showed earlier. This would be required if you are billing out of Unanet as well as using the financials, so that the invoice would know the contact name and the address that you are sending it to. We now even have the ability to email invoices directly from Unanet in Unanet 10.0 release. And you can also think of the contacts addresses as your CRM tool, your CRM Lite tool, since it does contain and can contain all of the customer contacts and addresses. And we have the ability to view that in a report that I'll show to you, and all interactions with that customer as well. So if we click here on the organization addresses, you can see here I have one, but you could certainly have many. And this was where you would designate the bill to and ship to for your invoicing in Unanet. Now also with 10.1, the release that came out in December, we have the ability to upload any types of files or attachments associated with this particular organization. So if there are any kind of a statement of work files that not are specific to the actual contract or project, but more at the organization level, you can certainly attach those files here now as well. So that's kind of a cool new feature. So the question would be now, where do organizations become associated with particular people or projects in use in the system? So let's go take a look at a person record first. So let's see here. I think I had editing my last person. Hopefully will be Katie Couric. So I've got a person here. So I wanted to show here this person organization. This is where that would specify which group of people or category or drawer you would be associated with here. So you can see here if I did a % sign to search on all of them, you'd be able to see all the different options I would have as the options to be able to include Katie Couric in which grouping. So this is where the association would be for that person organization. And it's great to be able to look at, if you want to do reporting or access for Engineering South, all the people associated with Engineering South, and Katie Kirk would come up with under that grouping along with anyone else associated with the System Engineering South group. Now for projects, let's go take a look at a project. There are two associations that go on for the project association. And the first one is the owning organization. The owning organization is really the organization that's going to be recognizing the revenue for that customer or group of customers. So here I've got my professional services owning organization that I can do reporting upon, grouping, and the actual project organization is that customer name, customer one in my example here. So it's the customer one, and that's who I'm sending the invoices to, billing to, shipping to, but this owning organization is who the payment is coming back to, who the payment is being remitted to. So when I look at those and look at the billing setup, it's important to denote that those designations under contacts do actually come from the project organization and required, as well as the remit to coming from the owning organization. So it's important to have those set up correctly, especially if you're doing billing in Unanet or you have the financials package set up. Very important. So next I wanted to show you the CRM Lite report that could be on an organization that would be a customer organization. So it's this organization activity report. I can tell you that within the customer account management within Unanet, we drink our own our tea. We have all of our information inside of our production Unanet, and we use all of the features, capturing our own time, etc., putting in notes, and all of you as customers are in our database as well in our Unanet instance. So I would look up you as one of my customers, and this is a go-to report that our CAM team has up all the time. So we can see contacts, we can see addresses, we can see any specifics on our user-defined fields, account manager. I can see all of the different projects, consulting projects, for example, our customer relations, our licensing, product support, and of course all of the interactions based on timesheet comments and any project notes that were put in the system and any attachments that happen to be with those notes. So we can gather a lot of information with this one report. That's the interaction. So you can see here is the actual projects, and I can drill in to get to those projects and look at the project profile from here. I can see the owning organization, who's the financial responsible organization, as well as the project manager. And then I can also see the actual customer information as well. So this is really a key report that is, what I call a CRM Lite report within Unanet. So if you're capturing timesheet comments and if you're capturing, notes about your interactions or statement of works, risks, etc., documents, all of that can be stored within your Unanet, and it's a really powerful benefit, a side benefit. I also wanted to show under the reports tab, let's go to an example report. Let's look at the JSR, for instance. So you can see here that I have multiple fields here to be able to select, report, group, and search upon. And so organizations for reporting purposes are really a primary key reporting field. In creating any report, the first report criteria is going to ask you to filter by organization potentially. So as a result, you'll typically set up your organizations to represent external and internal entities such as customers, divisions, departments, or lines of business like we've talked about before. So if I show just a general opening of a % sign for all of my different possibilities in my projects and look at all the owning organizations, you can see here's the owning organization: engineering, finance, IT PMO. If I wanted to look at ones that just started with engineering, I could select that, and here's the one project for the engineering owning organization. If I wanted to do a grouping on all of the organization codes, which would be the customers in my situation here. So here is the customer 1, here's my finance HR, customer 2, etc. If I wanted to further limit that to say, oh, I wanted to look at all the projects that were associated with customer 1 perhaps, or all just the customer projects, customer organization projects, I could. Here's 1, customer 2, customer 3. I think I had a 3 in here, yep. If I wanted to look at all the ones just for customer 1, I could certainly do that. And then, of course, for the actual project code. So you can use these to group together, select. If I wanted to do all of the customer 1 and customer _2, I can separate those with a comma and be able to locate those and have that grouping together. So again, thinking about the organizations and that hierarchy and the naming conventions allows you to report and group and select different persons and projects easier. The other idea is, more importantly, is restricting access to reporting metrics, which is really key. So the organization relationships are very helpful for restricting access, since your users can be assigned organizational access to any of the or all of the organizations or certain organizations within a given organizational tree. So let's take a look at what I mean again. So I'm going to go back to my Katie Couric. At the bottom, there's a quick link here to get back to the last person that you edited. So I'm going to look at her roles that she has for her system. She's a bill rate manager, expense user, project manager, resources assigner, and planner. So key here is this organizational access tab here. So what I wanted to point out here is this access is based on the person profile. So it's going to be grayed out if a user is just what I call a worker bee. They're only a timesheet user or an expense user. They won't have organizational access. So the menu option on here is used to control which people or project organizations the current user has access to. So then this will come up when you grant roles or add roles to the customer user profile. So many, but not all, of the roles on the person profile have visibility to Unanet data limited by the organization. But here's a few: the project manager, assigner, planner. But remember, her billing manager role it's not based on that organizational access. So using the pencil icon, you can define the visibility by role. Now you can see here a project manager is none, person, project for resource assigner. So she doesn't have access to any of these for the project manager. So I can, and this is defaulted, by the way, by a property setting in under the admin. I want to show you that property setting really quickly. I think that would be good to denote for you, because I think just so that you have that tip in your back pocket. So if you go to Properties and under Access Permissions, down below here is the default to set up your organizational access to either all by checking it or defaulting it to none by unchecking it. So you can see mine are defaulted to none. So that's why when you create the role, the access is defaulted to none, as we see here for Katie Couric. It's none. Okay. So now let's show you the access that she has for the project administrator role. So let's go here to my Reports tab and see what access that she might have as a project manager. So as a project manager and assigner and planner and approver, she has been given access at the project level for this one project for this customer. So she has no organizational access, right? No organizational access, but she's been given project administrator access specifically to one project, the 7011.102. So let's log in. If you'll bear with me, let's log in as Katie Couric and see what she actually has the ability to do. So I'm going to run just a project performance report and see that she can see actuals and a budget for that one project, for that one project organization, the customer one. So 7011.102. So, and we can verify that. And we have that set up because we have the project access that I showed you from the project administrator report. So let's grant her a little bit more access. Let's go log back in as my administrator in the system. And what I would like to do is go back to her person profile and grant her access by hitting the editing pencil here. And let's give her access to not all of the organizations, but let's give her access to all the customer organizations. So I want to let her to see all the different customer projects and organizations, all those ones associated with this hierarchy here. So if I expand it all, you can see I've selected all of these project organizations, customers, but not any of the people organizations as the project manager. So now if you'll bear with me, let's log back out and go back into Katie's account and run that same report. And remember, we previously were looking at the 7011, but now that I've granted her organizational access to all of the customers, you can see here she can see data or metrics for all of the projects under Customer 1, Customer 2, and Customer 3. So I hope that this kind of connects the fact that that organizational access really does make a difference as far as seeing what metrics. So you want to really kind of think about that, how you're setting in that. Are you giving open access to all of your users in the system, or do you need to refine that or restrict that? So another thing that I wanted to touch on, especially since it's the new year here, so let me log back into Chris as my administrator here, and I wanted to take a look at one more project in the system, and it's the holiday project, and show you how that is, how that works. Okay, so I'm pulling up this holiday project. So the people assignments, I'm going to go to the people assignments and the organizational access at the project level. Here's where I would set up specific organizations that allow all the persons associated with these people organizations to have access to the holiday project without having a direct assignment for each individual. So this makes the maintenance much easier for the year-by-year holiday setup, since the only thing the administrator would have to do is set up the new holiday list under admin setup for the holidays and the dates for the next year. And then if you have new divisions or departments or person organizations, you'd want to add them here as well so they have access to that holiday project. You wouldn't need the assignments, and those holiday dates would be pre-populated in their timesheets. So I just want to show you how another way that organizational access can be used and set up and granted here. I also wanted to remind everyone about our Unanet University classes that are scheduled for the rest of the next few months, actually. We just had our administrator refresher course this past week, and coming up next in March is our labor budgeting, forecasting, and skills management. And then again, we will have another administrator class at the end of May, and then cost and revenue reporting and billing invoicing June and 1st and 2nd. So we also have the team in training that is going on. So for the cost of the first person, which is $800 for the all-day class, a second person, a team member, can come in and join and register for half price. So that's a great deal. So definitely have the team in training concept in mind. Now we're extremely excited and well into our planning phase for our next customer account champions conference that's going to be on the East Coast this year. It is in Tyson's Corner at the Ritz-Carlton. We're really excited about that. Registration is open, and early bird registration is through, I think, the end of February time frame. There's really a great deal to be able to register early, and there's also a team registration for that as well that has a great discount as well. So in the PowerPoint, you'll have a link here in this slide. You can click into it. It's the Champions Conference link, and it can click into the Unanet Champions Conference and learn about the scheduling and be able to register here, etc. So do take a look at that. We do have a new fancy landing page here as well. So if you have information about justifying your trip, we do offer CPE credits. So really take a look at that now. We're really excited about. And the Wednesday before, on the April 20th, is a pre-conference day with training days as well. So do take a look at that. We're excited about that, and we hope to see everyone there at the Tyson's Corner in a few months. And then, of course, our resource slide available to you, and I've got some hyperlinks in here again for our webinars. We are scheduling our foundation series. Coming up next in 2 weeks is information about person roles, really diving into the person roles and the combination of what we learned today with organizational access. So we're going to do some different types of examples of end users and finance and people managers and project managers, and adjust some things and really dive into the access and restriction of reporting as well. So be sure to join and register for that webinar. And of course, we have our customer links that are available to you under unanet.com, your online help documentation, and the Knowledge Center that we will record. We did record the session, and we'll be uploading this recording into our Knowledge Center, and should be there within the next 24 to 48 hours. And hopefully you're receiving our monthly newsletter with tips and topics and information about new releases and our UU schedule and webinar schedule. So if you want to make sure if you're not receiving that, let us know. Send us a note at cam@unanet.com, and we'll make sure we're adding you to that monthly newsletter. I think that's all I had. We thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your joining us, and if you have any additional questions, please feel free to let us know. We're happy to get on a call with you.